Amy's luck has run out, and the resistance are unaware of her capture.
I must arrange some extra skids for Amy. They're keeping her busier than ever now.
Don't make yourself too comfortable. You'll soon be wanted for interrogation.
At times, the fist is heavier.
Well, that could mean anything.
Including that it's not Amy.
It can be very lonely being a wireless operator.
It can also be very lonely in a prison cell. But if I'm forced to hand you over to the Gestapo, you'll welcome being alone.
Rescue seems impossible. Wish me luck.
Back to this evening, and in a moment, the world news from ITN with Fiona Armstrong.
It is straight, square, curved, circular, the precise shape of every moving part it clings to, lubricating, cooling, and protecting. Oil is too small a word for it. It is Castrol GTX liquid engineering, fitted in your engine.
Oh, it's you.
Hello.
Oops.
Get off.
What have we here? Oh, Rolo.
Oh, yes. My last one by the looks of it. But... Oh, go on then.
Oh, thank you.
Do you love anyone enough to give them your last Rolo? Soft, creamy toffee in a milk chocolate cup.
Are you sure I can have it?
Yeah. Dotty about you.
Mortgages. What kind of place will I be able to afford? Kids. Think of the cost. A bank loan. Maybe I need to borrow some money for a few more kids. Then, of course, there's pensions. And life assurance. Not to mention holidays with the kids.
Barclays. For mortgages, loans, life assurance, pensions, travel money, investment.
You look worried. When's the wedding?
Or you could even just use us as a bank.
We never, ever turn one of our own over. We're mates. Got it?
London's burning. Blue Watch out on a shout.
The brake release lever and the hand winder wheel are on the missing list. I think you're going to need a proper fireman's lift, darling.
There's a 4-letter word that rhymes with your whip vest.
Person's reporting, move it!
Now, don't start without me, all right? I'll be back, I'll be back.
An inseparable team at work and in play. London's burning, tonight at 9:20.
And at 10:20, Nigel Havers is just one of Michael Aspel's guests. But now, the news.
The news from ITN.
Hard left take over Britain's biggest union, but moderates may appeal. More deaths in the occupied territories and more claims of brutality. Another win for Liverpool, 2 matches away from a record. And why America's president is never at a loss for words. Good evening. Control of Britain's biggest union, the Transport and General Workers, is tonight in the hands of the hard left. But after a prolonged meeting, the moderates now say they may challenge the result, which gives the hard left a majority of 22 votes to 17. Tonight, the Labour leader, Mr Kinnock, was said to be shrugging off the result. A party spokesman said Labour would be getting on with its job.
For 7 hours, leaders of the T&G went through the election returns line by line, almost vote by vote. But despite reported allegations of irregularities, the General Secretary, Ron Todd, insisted there'd been no challenges to the results, which gave the hard left control of his executive.
Can I make one thing clear to you? I've told you I've received no specific complaint from anybody regarding the count. Now, the ones that's in the media that you've given great prominence to was one complaint to me regarding the procedure of the count.
But would the new executive give support to Mr Kinnock's review of policy?
Our union will take its decision based on our view of policy and our always consistent support for the party. But it's not a blank cheque, and Mr. Kinnock and everybody else knows that. We are supporters of the Labour Party. Nothing changes because one or two changes have taken place on the executive.
Afterwards, the defeated chairman, Mr. Kinnock's main ally, was asked if he'd be challenging the result.
That remains to be seen.
When will you decide that?
When I'm free of the electoral rules that cover me as a candidate.
Which will be when?
Monday.
It seems unlikely then that the row over these elections is over. Moderates voted out of power today have already begun preparations to take their challenge of the results to the High Court. Kevin Dunn, ITN, at Transport House.
2 more Palestinian protesters have been shot dead in clashes with Israeli soldiers in the occupied West Bank. Dozens more were injured, and there have been new allegations of Israeli brutality.
The PLO promised a week of Palestinian outrage to demonstrate their rejection of the American peace initiative. It's already become the bloodiest week of the 2.5-month-old uprising. 2 more Palestinians shot dead today and more than 20 wounded as Israeli troops opened fire with live ammunition on rioters. The largest demonstrations were at Hebron, but unrest is now spreading to rural areas previously untouched by the violence. George Shultz, on the second stage of his peace mission, travelled to Israel's Arab neighbours. Syria's President Assad, an unlikely ally, but Mr. Shultz wants Syria to use its influence in the region to find a settlement. He'd already run into difficulties with Jordanian leaders, who told him both the PLO and Soviet Union would have to be included in any talks. Meanwhile, there have been more allegations of brutality by the Israeli security forces. The 4 soldiers filmed beating 2 Arabs at Nablus have been arrested and face court-martial. But in this Gaza hospital today, there were claims that such brutality is an everyday event. The ward full of young Palestinians with stories of ill treatment at the hands of Israeli soldiers.
He saw about 70 soldiers coming and they started beating him. You can see the marks of the sticks, you know, it goes like that.
This 10-year-old says he was run over by an Israeli jeep. Doctors aren't sure if his badly fractured leg will mend. Following the latest allegations and damaging publicity, Israeli army commanders admit they may have to reconsider the way their young soldiers are deployed. Paul Davis, ITN, Jerusalem.
In the Irish Republic, the parents of Aidan McAnespie, the man shot dead by the army last week, have called for the Irish police to exhume his body and carry out a new post-mortem. And in Belfast, the part-time Ulster Defence Regiment soldier, Private Fred Starrett, who was killed by an IRA bomb, has been buried with full military honours.
In the 6 days since Aidan McAnespie's death in Ochnacloy, police on both sides of the Irish border have been investigating the shooting. He was hit by a machine gun bullet, and the RUC inquiry has resulted in Guardsman David Holden being charged with unlawful killing. He says it was an accident. Mr. McAnespie's relatives disagree. Their lawyer has been to Monaghan, where the Garda inquiry team is based. He's asked for the body to be exhumed for a second post-mortem examination.
Now, the family is not satisfied with the post-mortem or the autopsy which was carried out on Sunday. And really, one could not possibly hope to carry out an independent inquiry if one is not satisfied about the findings of the post-mortem.
Should the Irish agree, there's no obstacle as Mr. McAnespie's body is buried in the Republic. At the end of a tense week in the province, the Reverend Ian Paisley led mourners at the funeral of UDR soldier Fred Starrett. He was buried with full military honours. Members of his platoon carried his coffin. Riflemen saluted their comrade. The last post was a reminder that 5 UDR soldiers have been killed this year. Simon Cole, ITN, Northern Ireland.
2 British air stewardesses died when a Turkish airliner crashed in northern Cyprus, killing all 15 people on board. Sharon Simcock and her colleague Andrea Pegg were working for the Thalia Airline Charter Company. The Princess Royal has been touring the shantytowns of Maputo, the capital of Mozambique. The Princess, president of the Save the Children Fund, is seeing at first hand the work it does in Africa.
The shantytown children of Maputo have never known a day without war. Tens of thousands of them have fled from their homes in the bush to escape the fighting that at times has reached the outskirts of the capital. And today they were out in their thousands, Marxist ideology forgotten, as they welcomed a royal princess. Outside the cities, the education system has virtually collapsed, and schooling facilities in Maputo can barely cope with the influx of displaced children. And when these children got caught up in the press scramble, it prompted an angry response from the princess.
Go! Leave the children alone.
In the children's ward at Maputo Hospital, the princess saw her first casualties of the war. 1-year-old Julio Vlau, nearly dead from malnutrition after travelling for over a week with his mother to escape the rebels. Peter Sharp, ITN in Mozambique.
There'll be a special programme on the Princess Royal's African tour on ITV tomorrow. Now with news of today's sport, here's Giles Smith.
Liverpool's remorseless march to the title goes on. Today they beat Portsmouth 2-0, both goals from John Barnes. It was their 27th game without defeat, just 2 short of Leeds' record of 29.
Another full house had turned up to see Dalglish's Wonder Boys. Yet as usual, Liverpool looked frail for the first few minutes. Portsmouth's Quinn looked set to provide the shock of the day, but nerves got the better of him. Then a sweeping Portsmouth move threatened Liverpool's dignity again. It fell to Quinn once more, and he fired another blank. But Liverpool's inevitable goal was delayed only just past half-time. Barnes certainly made it, but Gilbert's boot was the main reason it went in. After that, Portsmouth rarely resurfaced. Their bad luck continued when poor Quinn finally got the ball in, to find it disallowed for the mildest of pushes. And just to rub it in, Liverpool flattered themselves with a second, beautifully worked by Beardsley and Houghton, and finished by Barnes. Even playing badly, they're still winning. Peter Staunton, ITN Sport, Fratton Park.
Of those now really only fighting for second place, Everton's Paul Power got the winner against Southampton, and Arsenal's Paul Merson got 2 in their decimation of Charlton. In Scotland, Mark Walters got the equaliser for Rangers, but they fall even further behind leaders Celtic, for whom Roy Aitken got the winner against Morton. But good news for football in general. Figures out today show more people at the turnstiles. League gates increased by 1%, despite forecasts they'd fall. Average gates for all matches in England and Wales are up nearly 14%, and in the FA Cup the increase is bigger still, nearly 25%. Rugby, and the big story tonight is the exit from the John Player Cup of Bath, winners for the past 4 years. They were beaten by Moseley 4-3. Also through to the semi-final, Bristol and Wasps, and Harlequins, who thrashed Waterloo 37-4. The first try came from a tap penalty when England flanker Mickey Skinner used all his weight and speed to barge over. The second came when a strangely lacklustre Waterloo tried to run the ball out of defence, lost it, and scrum half Richard Moon darted through. But their best try came 10 minutes from time when some clever jinking from Everton Davis blew away the defence to set up the Quins' 3/4. Former All Black Jamie Salmon finally getting the touchdown and 23 points in the match for himself. Cricket, and Martin Moxon fell 1 short of a century in Auckland as the second test began looking more and more like a draw. England at 302 for 8 were just 1 run ahead with only 2 days to go.
It all began so well for Moxon, motoring smoothly towards his first test century. But the 90s couldn't have been more nervy. New Zealand took the new ball. He was dropped on 98, and after 20 minutes on 99, this happened. Gatting took up the run chase, but again it ended with an umpiring decision he found hard to take. Then more controversy courtesy of umpire Goodall. He was sure it came off French's bat. French was convinced it was pad, and the evidence seemed to support him. It's unlikely he'll be the toast of England tonight.
Racing, and there's a new Grand National favourite tonight. The Stan Mellor-trained Lannerai impressed so much in coming second in the big race at Kempton to Rhyme and Reason that he was installed at 16-1 for Aintree. Halfway round there was a near disaster as leader Broadheath almost fell and On the Twist did. That let in Rhyme and Reason, but watch for Lannerai's speed at the end.
Coming down towards the final fence, and it's Rhyme and Reason in the lead, comes to it, jumps it safely from Lannerai, who's come to the challenge for second place. Mr. Frisk third at best, but it's Rhyme and Reason who holds on. Lannerai is powering down the track, but Rhyme and Reason has it. Ryman Reason from Lanarine second. Mr. Frisky's third.
The price is 7-2 favourite, 20-1 and 6-1.
The Duke and Duchess of York were given a rapturous welcome today when they arrived in Los Angeles. We have this report.
Where else would you find dozens of centurions playing saxophones and euphoniums on the steps of the City Hall? A typically flamboyant LA greeting as the Duke and Duchess of York arrived at City Hall for their first official engagement. Reflecting the mood, the city's initials on the royal hat. More music, this time a regal fanfare as the couple were greeted by city officials and aldermen. The Duke was to make a speech extolling the virtues of more trade between California and the United Kingdom. The morning was a music lover's dream. After the speeches were done, the royals were entertained by the group Los Lobos playing the Spanish hit La Bamba. Outside, the rival band also played on. Los Angeles loves a star. For the next 8 days, they have 2 to look at and talk about. And so far, LA seems to love the Yorks. Ken Reese, ITN, Los Angeles.
Finally, President Reagan has been taking unusual steps to ensure he's never at a loss for words. He gets his staff to script even the simplest conversation for him.
Ronald Reagan's use of 4x5 cards to refresh his memory in addressing White House visitors, in this case his cabinet, is well known.
We made a good start, Geneva.
But the detail of the script prepared by the president's staff is surprising. This is a copy of Mr. Reagan's private schedule of appointments for today, along with the suggested talking points, the script, prepared by Mr. Reagan's staff. This morning, the president met with business leaders behind closed doors. Talking point number 1. Let me start by saying thanks to all of you for coming today. The same thing happened later, when the president saw Senate Majority Leader Robert Byrd and other senators just back from an overseas trip. Bob, I appreciate you and your colleagues coming down today. Afterward, Byrd described the president's participation.
He was intensely interested in what we had to say. He was very actively engaged, and I think deeply appreciative.
Appreciative? Yes. One of the talking points for Mr. Reagan says, Bob, I want to thank you especially for undertaking this and for handling your discussions over there so effectively. The president saw industrialist Armand Hammer, an old friend and head of a cancer panel, along with HHS Secretary Otis Bowen, all behind closed doors. As usual, talking point number 1 was, thank you, Armand, for coming here to present the report of the president's cancer panel. The script calls for Mr. Reagan to say, quote, can you tell me more about your efforts? After which, Mr. Reagan is to say, Otis, what are your thoughts? The president's first-term communications director says such a detailed script is new and silly.
I will tell you, almost every politician in Washington, before he has some kind of meeting, his staff prepares talking points, 3 or 4 points that he might use in a meeting. The kind of points you have found, I've never seen anything like that in the White House in the past. I mean, these sound silly. I mean, the staff is just going to ridiculous extremes.
And it says on my cue card, good night from me. Good night.
A new world of competition is about to hit the ITV companies. Can quality programs survive the change? Watch Weekend World, live tomorrow at noon on ITV.
Hello, weather now. Well, there'll be a big change for all of us tomorrow. But for tonight, it'll continue quite mild with temperatures at about 4 or 5 Celsius, 39 to 41 Fahrenheit. Winds are moderate from the northwest, blowing at about 15 miles per hour. There'll be a fair amount of cloud around, with some mistiness on the hills at first and 1 or 2 spots of drizzle. The cloud will break up later in the night, though, so tomorrow morning will start off quite sunny everywhere, with temperatures between 4 and 6 Celsius, 39 to 43 Fahrenheit. During the day, though, the northwesterly wind will pick up, bringing cold air from the north, so temperatures will fall, and with the wind blowing at 25 to 30 miles per hour, it'll feel bitterly cold. Towards evening, there'll be wintry showers near the east coast, and later in the night, those showers will spread inland as well, and they'll turn to snow. So there'll be a covering of snow in places by Monday morning, and there's more to come after that. We'll be back again at 1 o'clock tomorrow. Until then, good night.
Next, the members of Blue Watch are on call in London's Burning.
we're looking for.
We'll have to hurry. There'll be other people after it.
We've seen this place we'd like to buy.
Yes, but we need a mortgage quickly.
Well, I can give you a good idea of how much you can borrow straight away. And we'll confirm it in a few days.
If you need a quick decision on a mortgage, come to Barclays.
Got the mortgage.
Anyone can save with an insurance company. But how long do you want to sit around waiting for your money? With Commercial Union, you have a choice. You can save for your retirement or for much earlier in life. We believe in savings you can spend on a rainy day or a sunny one. Because CU Life is for living.
I wonder, if I ate enough Heinz baked beans, do you think I could become Prime Minister?
You just might, Margaret. You just might.
Millions of little Britons have grown up great knowing beans means Heinz.
There's a new force behind British business. It's the Enterprise Initiative from DTI. One firm joined a design initiative. It helped them to design a stronger and simpler personal emergency alarm for the elderly and infirm. Another company put wind in their sails when they worked alongside an independent designer to produce a new automatic yacht steering system. The design initiative is part of the Enterprise Initiative from DTI. Take it. Phone 0800 500 200 for a brochure.
Are they really glad to see you when they wonder how you've been? Or could it be your box they want to share? Do they want your chocolate truffle and your triangle in green? Do they love you or your coconut eclair? When they all come round to visit and they take your hand and kiss it, is it you they love or is it you they love or your quality sweet? A late night for Early Bird and Diamond this Saturday, along with two of the snappiest dressers in town, champion charmer Nigel Havers and that giant of the jazz world, George Melly. Join us for Aspel and Company at the new time of 10:20.
This is LWT. Now, London's burning.